Hi, welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about how we've been digitizing Airbus's global supply chain through APIs. Before we begin, this is our safe harbor statement, just to remind you that any content shared in this presentation is open to change. Now, before we get started, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items for today's sessions. First, we'll send out a recording of this webinar later today, so please look for a link in your inbox. Next, we're going to save time to answer your questions at the end, so feel free to use the questions widget on the left-hand side of the webinar portal to ask any questions you may have. Also, join the conversation and tweet #MealTalks to let us know what you think. And finally, we always look forward to your feedback, so please rate this webinar by selecting the survey widget at any point during the webinar. I'd like to take a minute to introduce our speakers for today. My name is Sophia, and I am the Retail and Manufacturing Industry and Solutions Lead at MuleSoft. I also have with me here today Nizar and Adrian. Nizar is one of the leaders of the Digital Accelerator at Airbus. He's in charge of several digital platforms, mainly API and DevOps enterprise platforms. And he's working to enable digital transformation initiatives across Airbus and all of its entities and subsidiaries. I also have with me today Adrian, who is an API evangelist. He is in charge of promoting the API product strategy within the company by showing the value that APIs can bring the business and organization when leveraged appropriately. He's working to drive API adoption and really help develop new business processes as well. Manufacturers have recognized that they can no longer be successful on their own and must rely on a network of business partners in order to operate effectively and keep costs low. That means increasingly relying on a global network of suppliers, contract manufacturers, logistics providers, and other partners to really help assemble, ship, sell, and repair their products. For example, one of the reasons why Ford is able to keep Mustang costs low is because they're working with all of these partners to get these various car components. But the challenge becomes that as the number of partners in the supply chain increases, so does the level of information exchange and coordination required across all of these partners. And every additional supplier and touch point also introduces another potential failure point and additional uncertainty. And this can be uncertainty in travel times, machine breakdowns, weather or natural catastrophe, or sometimes even political climate. And that's why developing an agile supply chain is so important. The purpose of a supply chain is to ensure processes that are necessary to design, fabricate, distribute, sell, support, use, and dispose of a product are optimized for rapidly changing market demands and able to adapt to increased complexity. And executives are recognizing that their current supply chain simply isn't going to cut it. In fact, 89% of supply chain executives report that customers see their current operating model as too complex, and their decision-making speed and flexibility to respond are key sources of that complexity. And so manufacturing executives are turning to their IT teams to give them a competitive edge. And supply chain is the core of a manufacturer's business model. As technology advances and competition to win and retain customers has grown, industry disruption has created pressures for manufacturers to look towards digitizing their supply chain. Specifically, we're seeing a few trends that have led to the increased pressure on business and IT to increase agility. First is increased cost competition. Manufacturers are looking to further see cost reduction to provide more competitive pricing by improving efficiency and synergy within their supply chains. And this may come in the means of cloud adoption or legacy modernization. And so IT needs to figure out how can we increase operational efficiency at lower costs. And that might mean having better financial management, cost control, and less organizational waste. In fact, other times it means reducing lead time and scoping for the right size of the cost of operations as well to ensure that we have accurate forecasting and planning to allow for proper execution. Second, we're seeing that there's a rise in customer expectations. So today, customers are demanding better service. So if they call in asking, where is my order, customer service reps should be able to track down their packages and provide them with insight into real-time shipment statuses. And this IT needs to figure out How can we improve communication and collaboration with downstream customers and supply chain partners and be able to provide their partners with the ability to track physical status of goods? And third, there's a huge increase in pressure for more innovation. New products to market are often rewarded with a larger market share. So in order to quickly gain a larger market share through new products, some manufacturers are turning to M&A activity to even support their growth strategy. So manufacturers need to figure out how can we quickly integrate new acquisitions or new products into their product portfolio. And thus, IT needs to figure out how can we actually set up back-end processes and integrations to ensure that we're able to process business orders for new products. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our Airbus team, to Nazar and Adrian, to share their own story and how they managed to digitize Airbus's global supply chain by leveraging APIs.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Sophia. I'm Nazar. I work at Airbus, and today we're going to walk you through our API journey at Airbus and how it helped us digitalize our global supply chain. Adrian is going to talk you through what Airbus is, what we do, what are our challenges, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Nazar. So very often we don't realize how the aviation industry has a huge impact on our society and on our world economy. I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, the air traffic was completely grounded in Europe due to the eruption of the Icelandic volcano. And it had a direct impact on stock markets because a lot of people are traveling for business and aircraft are carrying tons of freight for any importation and exportation. We have also many countries really dependent of this industry because they are living from tourism. So aircraft can bring all those tourists, and if we have any disruption in this industry, then it will have a huge impact on the health of the country. In the world, we have around 1,400 airlines operating more than 26,000 aircraft, carrying 3.6 billion passengers and more than 51 million tons of freight every year. What you should know is that this industry is doubling every 15 years.
So Airbus is a commercial aircraft manufacturer. That's not only. We have also two other divisions, defense and space and helicopter. So we are also building satellites, launchers, helicopters, and military aircraft. So at Airbus, we have more than 133,000 employees all around the world. So in Europe, in Asia, in India, in Australia, and even in US. So in Mobile in Alabama, we have a final assembly line where we are building A320 and very soon A220 for airlines like American Airlines, Delta Airlines, and Air Canada, and so on. Today we have an order book of around 460 billion, and the company is making 64 billion euro of revenue every year, knowing that 75% of those revenue are made just by Airbus commercial aircraft. Do you imagine one Airbus takes off or lands every 1.4 seconds? This is just amazing. It's thanks to the fact that we have sold more than 19,000 aircraft, and so far we have delivered 12,000 aircraft. So it means we have still a backlog around 7,000 aircraft to deliver with a monthly rate of 60 aircraft. So it means that every day we deliver 2 aircraft. It seems very late, indeed, if we compare to a car manufacturer, which is deliver 1,000 cars per month. But in fact, we are really not playing in the same game. If you take a car, you have something like 1,000 parts. And if you take the A320, we have more than 1.4 million parts. And if you take the A380, the biggest commercial aircraft in the world, with 2 decks, we have more than 7 million parts. So it's really amazing. It's really huge. And when you go on the final assembly line and you see it on price, you can really realize how it's crazy to be able to deliver 2 aircraft per month. But it's also a big challenge for us because we have still 7,000 aircraft to deliver, so it means 9 years of production. So if you sell more aircraft, we are just increasing our years of production. And it's not what we want. It's a big issue for the airline because it means that they have to anticipate. They should know what will be the market in few years, what will be their need, and so on. So it's really difficult for them. And it's also very difficult for Airbus because we need cash. So at the end, we need to deliver more aircraft to get cash and be able to reinvest this money in innovation and in new programs. So our first big challenge is really to increase the production rate. So our second big challenge is that we have more and more disruptive competitors. Thanks to new technologies, they are able to build a new business model. I have a few examples. The first one is SpaceX. They are able to bring back their launcher on the Earth. And thanks to the reuse of the launchers, they can reduce the cost to launch a satellite. And as they don't have to build again those launchers, they can do more launch within the year as well. So this innovation is really important and bringing a lot of value for this company. The second example is Hyperloop. I think you all know this project, Hyperloop. It's a kind of train with a module in a tube, and the idea is to reach a speed of 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers per hour, which is faster than an aircraft. And also, it's not normal for people to fly. People are quite afraid to fly. They prefer to stay on the Earth. So if you have a line from New York to San Francisco, maybe people will prefer to take an Hyperloop than an aircraft, even if the aircraft is the safest public transport in the world. So it means that at Airbus, maybe we have to make our craft safer and also faster. So this is a big challenge for us. Last but not least, if we take Uber, you all know Uber, you can order a car to go to a point to another one. So Uber, they are really good to transport people. But they have created also a new company, which is Uber Elevate. So they are working on flying cars. What Airbus is also doing with its program, Airbus Urban Mobility. Airbus is building flying cars. So who thought a few years ago that Uber one day would become a competitor of Airbus? No one. And even Airbus didn't see it coming. So all those new companies, thanks to new technology and great ideas, are really able to disrupt the market and to create business models. So now I will let Nizar to explain how, thanks to digital solutions and API, we are answering to all those challenges.
Thanks, Adrian. So to sum it up, two major challenges. One is related to how we're going to manufacture more planes with the same level of quality, and the second one is how we're going to face all these new disruptive competitors that are coming into the market, right? So IT has actually a really central part in all this story, because the relationship between how IT works and how the business works is really central to how you're going to be able to secure business operations, how we're going to be able to build more aircraft, and how we're going to be able also to find new business models, because these new business models are actually really tied to technology itself, and who's better placed to understand technology than IT. So the relationship between the business and IT is actually one of the more central parts to how we're going to achieve this transformation. Coming back to manufacturing. So obviously Airbus has been building planes for the past 50 years. If we want to achieve this transformation, we need to really see it as a journey, right? Because we still have old plants where we have only manual labor to build the aircraft itself. We have newer plants that take into account some IT systems and with some automated stuff. And we have the plant of the future, which is fully robotic plants, right? With only robots, very few humans, and something. And IT needs to support all these ways of production, right? It's not shifting from a full robotic system. That's not what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to speed up every production process. And IT is really key here, because how we're going to transition the information and how we're going to leverage it to build more planes is how we're going to support the past, the present, and the future. To support the manufacturing process, one thing that is really important is to understand how the planes themselves are built. So Airbus is a European company, obviously. So different parts of the plane are built in different countries. If you take the wings, they are built in the UK. If you take the nose, it's built in France. The tail is built in Germany, etc., etc., etc. So the logistics is actually a really important part, because what happens is we build all these parts of the plane, then we ship them to a place that we call the final assembly line, and then we assemble the plane in that factory. That's how the aircraft is built, right? So the manufacturing process in itself is actually quite complex, because you build different parts in different countries, assemble them in one piece. So how you're going to shift and connect your IT systems through countries and through the manufacturing process itself is how we're going to speed up the time of building aircraft. Okay, so to speed up that time, we need to have the global picture of it. Okay, so IT has been working in a way for several years. The relationship with the business has been done in that way for also several years, and now we need to change a bit this, so we can focus more on the value that we get out of IT, refocus on the customer, and refocus on the employees themselves. So at Airbus, 2 years ago, we decided to achieve our digital transformation by building an IT department that we call the Digital Accelerator. The idea here is to build new technological platforms, API, DevOps, cloud, mixed reality, mobile applications, IoT, etc. And by building these digital platforms, we hire new skills, and we try to shift in a new mindset in IT, right? And this mindset and this new relationship that we're going to have is one of the key aspects that are going to allow us to be better at what we do. And all this brings us to APIs, right? So the API as a digital foundation is also one of the parts of the Digital Accelerator and of how we're going to achieve digital transformation at Airbus. So what is our API vision at Airbus, and how did we get here? Our API vision is built upon the discovery of new services, the breakdown of silos, and how we're going to be able to find key data within the company in a matter of minutes instead of weeks and months, which is the case today. It's all right. Our API vision is built upon discoverability, reusability, and knowledge sharing, basically. When we first started our API program within the Digital Accelerator, we started by building a strategy, right? And in that strategy, at some point in time, we need to pick up the technology to support the strategy. And we were looking into different types of solutions, mainly API-led, but also with a bit of integration. And MuleSoft came came up as a really good solution because what we've been able to achieve with MuleSoft is actually tie in our API strategy with our IT legacy decommissioning strategy through integration. So we've been able to achieve both, and one of the main strengths of MuleSoft as a solution is the fact that when you start an API program, you kickstart it, time is a factor, and speed actually really matters because you have people financing you, right, as an IT department, and they want to see return on investment quickly, right? So they don't expect the return invest to come after 3-4 years. They want it to come quicker, and MuleSoft actually helps us achieve all of this. And in our API journey, we believe we won something like a year or two by using MuleSoft. A couple of words on our approach. So how did we make all this happen? And how did we tie up our API strategy through MuleSoft? And what was basically our strategy? So we broke it down into 4 points, really. First one being evangelization. How we're going to be able to achieve the cultural shifts of mindset of having IT help actually the business build these new business models. Evangelization is all about making the business and IT teams understand what are the benefits of APIs, how you can leverage the reusability of the APIs themselves to better get value out of it. Second point is the exposition of APIs. Each time a new IT project starts, and you have hundreds of them that start each year, you take a bit of that IT project and you expose the APIs through MuleSoft and the portal so someone else can reuse it. And this ties into the next point, identification. So when you start a new IT project, if you're able to identify building blocks that have been already built beforehand that you can reuse in your project, that's when you start to see the savings and the power of the API. So exposition and identification are two key things to achieve the savings and the promise of APIs. Last one being the scale. So for us to see the real value of an API program, we need to be able to scale it, right? Scaling the platform to not only Airbus commercial aircraft, but also all the subsidiaries, all the teams. So the more people know about APIs, the more people see the APIs, the more people understand the APIs, and the more value we're going to get out of it. So how we're going to scale is one important part of it, because it's what's going to make the investment really worth it.
So now let's go to more concrete things. Today in Airbus, we have more than 300 APIs in production. And so now I will present you 3 projects that has been implemented on our platform. The first one is the vessel localization service. So as Nizar said, in Europe, we have different plans, and we need to move the different parts to the final assembly line. So for that, we have the Beluga, which is a big cargo aircraft, but we have also many vessels. And for logistics, it's really important to track them, to know if they are late, when they will arrive, and so on. Before, some people were in charge of taking care of that. And now we want to automate this. And the idea here is not to put IoT or any GPS on the vessels, because there are already some companies doing that for the Airbus, and they're doing it very well. So the idea here is to consume their service and to provide all the data within the company, to spread the data within the company. So here you can see the diagram of this project. So as you can see, we are following the API-led connectivity proposed by MuleSoft with those 3 layers where we have system APIs, process APIs, and experience APIs. As you can see, we have one API, which is on the cloud, the system API, spreading all the data from this outside service within the company. So to the LAN API, which is an experience API. We have also an API for authentication and so on. But what I really want to highlight here is it's not really the project itself. It's really the fact that we are spreading data from an outside service within the company. So we have only one contract with this outside company. So I have also some examples in Airbus for weather data, where we have something like 20 contracts for weather data. So we have 20 business and domains concerning weather data. And the idea would be to have only one contract, so you can better negotiate the contract, because more you consume the data, very often less you will pay. So thanks with this strategy, with all those APIs, you can spread then the data from an outside service within the company. So the second project, Smart NC. So then we are moving parts from one place to another that we. So basically, for this, we create a non-conformity to explain what is the issue and all the things that have to be done to solve it. And the people working on the aircraft, they have to go in a room on a computer in order to enter this non-conformity, to check the status, to see all the actions and so on. So at the end, in their work, they are not very efficient because they are far from the aircraft. They are losing time to go from this computer to the aircraft, and they don't see the problem directly on the aircraft, which is not good for safety and security, quality, and so on. So the idea here is really to extract those data from ACP and to provide them directly on the mobile app. So they can scan the barcode directly on the aircraft where we have the non-conformity and have the status and all the information and what you have to do. What is really important here to understand that it's a really basic project is that we have thousands of people working on the farm 24/7 during all the year. So every minute that we can save can be converted at the end of the year in millions of savings. So basic projects are really important also because we can make a lot of savings, and also thanks to this project we are increasing the security and safety and quality of our aircraft. So on the diagram you can see all the APIs for this project. So we have APIs in the LAN to extract the data from ACP. We have one API in the cloud to extract the data from Skywise, which is our big data platform. And then we have one API, process API, in the cloud in order to aggregate everything and then to spread them to the smartphone. Here we have also the authentication API, and which is good here because before we developed one in the LAN, and here we need it in the cloud. So we took what we built and we just redeploy it, but in the cloud. So we save a lot of time and we reuse what we did. So last but not least, the Eagle project, which allows the logistician to have a good overview of all the parts already ordered, the status of the stocks, and also all the non-conformities. So when we have non-conformities, we have to replace the parts. So it means that there is an impact on our stocks in the warehouse. And sometimes for some parts, we need 6 months to build them. So we need to reorder them in order to make sure that our supply chain will not be stopped. So it's really important for them to have this global overview. And thanks to the APIs that we already built, they can reuse the data in order to get that in their application. So on this slide, you can have a resume of all the APIs that we built for those 3 projects. So for the Eagle project, we have a lot of data coming from different ACP systems. We aggregate some data thanks to process APIs, then we spread this to experience APIs, and then directly to the application. And here you can also see that we are reusing the non-conformity APIs and also the authentication APIs, of course. So thanks to the API-like connectivity, we are building a lot of assets that can be reused through the different projects. So for example, for the first one, we built the authentication API, which is reused for the second project. And then for the second project, we developed many APIs, so APIs for authentication, APIs for non-conformity, also some technical APIs which were not on the diagrams before in order to simplify them. So a lot of assets, and which are practically all reused for the third project. So really, thanks to this approach, you can really accelerate the development of your different projects and save time and then money. So this approach is really perfect, and we are following it. And within the time, we will accelerate more and more all our projects.
Thanks, Adrian. So to close this webinar session, just going to give you guys a couple of hints about what are the next steps. We've been 2 years into this API program. We went in with big ambitions, and we were even surprised ourselves that we actually have been able to deliver them. For this year, we were aiming for 300 APIs going into year 2, and we've already almost smashed that number. We're at 290 right now, and we're going to be able to achieve that number by the end of the year. Our goals for next year is to actually double that number, right? So that's what we want to do, and I think the example that Adrian showed earlier about the building blocks is actually a pretty interesting one, because the more APIs we build, the more we're able to reuse them, and which turns into the more savings we're going to get out of the program itself. One of the objectives of this API program, from the start, we were aiming to have a complete return invest after year 3 and year 4. And I think we're going to be able to achieve that next year. So all the amount of money that we're going to get, we're going to turn it into value, and we're going to deliver that value through the APIs and through reuse. That's what we have in stock for next year. Anyways, let's jump on to questions now.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A section. So feel free to send in all of your questions that you might have, and we have a couple of questions that have already come in. So the first one is, how easy or challenging was it to get started on the MuleSoft platform? What technical skill sets did the team need in order to actually utilize the platform as well?
Okay, thanks for the question. So what technical skill sets do you need to use MuleSoft? So I think to actually kickstart the program, you need actually maybe a MuleSoft expert to be able to kickstart the program itself. But later on, like, I think the main focus needs to be on APIs instead of just MuleSoft. Like, you need good API developers and a couple of experienced architects that can make some guidelines and find new ways to interact with the platform itself. Like, MuleSoft as a platform, if you think about how Anypoint works, it's actually a self-sufficient platform, so it's not that hard to use it. Does that answer your question, Sophia?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, could you give us some more insight into when you guys first got started on the platform? Did it meet your expectations, and how challenging it would be to get started, or was it fairly simple?
Well, actually, it was fairly simple, because that was one of the main drivers why we chose MuleSoft in the first place. We chose MuleSoft because we weren't looking for a really hard to integrate platform. We were looking for something, you could start off right off the bat, build some APIs, integrate them, monitor them, and get to use it quickly. So that was one of the main drivers. And coming back to the question itself. When we considered it, we were looking for something not so hard to integrate skill-wise. So, and that's what MuleSoft brings to the table. Actually, you just need a bunch of experienced and talented architects, to start off, and any developer really that knows how to build some Java API can also join the fray. And you think about also the integrators, because it's not a 100% make strategy. You can also buy some consultants to use it. And usually the integrators, they like a lot of MuleSoft. If you look at CGI, Soprasteria, Capgemini, whatever big service company, they usually have a MuleSoft integration center. So you can actually scale pretty quickly through integrators. And you can think about building a delivery center in India, outsource it, build it in Europe. Whatever situation can actually work, because the skills and the talent are there. So it's not that hard, and speed is a good factor.
Awesome, thank you. The next question that kind of ties into, I think, the previous question really nicely was, how big was your IT team when you guys got started, and how did you divide the responsibilities amongst the team?
Okay, good question. So to explain to you, I think we need just a bit of background to answer this one. So one of the choices that were actually really smart at Airbus was that we didn't just build an API team right from scratch. Actually, we tied up the new stuff with the old one. So it's the API and integration team. So the integration team has been, around the space for more than a decade, building, ESBs, ETLs, all that sort of stuff. So all that sort of stuff still exists in the company, but initially it was the integration team that kickstarted the project by building a POC around API. So when you think about the size of the team, it was already like something like 40 people, but doing ESB, ETL, all that old stuff, right? And we added on top of that just a bunch of people that knew some things around the API space. So actually tying in the integration with the API was actually pretty cool because end of the day, API, it's still like other integration technology. So reusing all these assets that and talent that used to work on legacy technologies was actually a good enabler for us because we didn't have to start from zero. So we started off the team, we were something like 3 or 4, and now like the team is something around 60. Okay. Yeah, quick ramp up in 2 years.
Growth. Yeah, that's incredible growth. That's pretty cool to hear how much your team has been growing and adopting the platform. The next question that I think follows off on the team question is, now that you've built out all of these capabilities on your supply chain, do you find your teams are actually actively adopting this new way of operating now through APIs?
We need to answer this question. You really need to see it as a journey. There's no quick answer such as, year 1 you do this, year 2. Like these things take time. So the guys that used to work on integration, they are much more sensitized on working on APIs, obviously, and that's why we have all this program of modernizing our IT legacy. So you take ESB flows, you think about API-led connectivity. Well, there's some room for improvement in doing stuff there. So already one part of all our projects come from the integration space itself, but also another big part comes from true API-led connectivity and how we are going to build APIs on top of our legacy. So when it comes to transformation, it's a long journey. I believe it's a 5 to 6 year journey, and we're still in year 2. So we still have lots of stuff to do. And I think also one part that's important is when you think about the integration space, R&D is key here. So thinking about stuff like event streaming, service mesh, all that sort of cool stuff that's coming in the future years. Well, that's also something we need to think about as a team, so we can integrate all the new patterns. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. I think actually this next question too is kind of playing off of that. As you guys talk about integration and digital transformation isn't just a quick fix. It is going to take 5 to 6 years in order for us to see true realized value at the extent that you guys are looking for. So I guess we shared some of the projects that you guys have already done. But what projects are you guys currently focusing on, and how much reuse do you expect you're actually going to get from future projects with the previous ones that you guys have already done?
So what's the question exactly? You want to know what we have in mind for the future years, or?
Yeah. So what projects are you currently focusing on now, and how much reuse do you plan on getting?
Okay. So basically, like our strategy was about self-service at first. Now we're shifting a little. Okay, we're shifting a little, and that's part of the story, and that's part of the journey as well. So part of the journey is how you're going to modernize your IT, how you're going to make your IT more efficient so you can reinvest that money into APIs, right? Second part of the story is how you're going to invest all that money into this API integration program and how it's going to tank in with the benefits, right? So our business case was about, we were thinking about a break-even point around year 3 or year 4. So year 3 or year 4, you have the same amount of benefits that you have of cost, right? So actually, the program becomes self-sustainable after a certain point in time. And to make that, it's all about the reuse. Like that's the key part of it. So it's all about the reuse. So the more we build assets that are that point to key data within the company, the more we're going to be able to achieve reuse, and that's through marketing, through different types of tactics. So year 4 is our break-even point when it comes to cash flow, and to make sure that we ramp up on the benefits part, we need to make sure that we work with the data officers, with the governance, and with all these teams, so we can identify what are the key data, how we're going to exploit this for APIs, and at some point in time, also by working with the business, how we're going to sell the data outside the company to generate extra revenue. That's also one of the magic parts about digital transformation is if you only see digital transformation as transforming IT into newer IT, well, you just have one part of the picture. You also need to understand that all these new business models that we can invent through APIs, we are here to sensitize the business to understand that they can also generate revenue through data. That's also a big aspect, and it's going to take more and more place in our journey in the following years.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think that really speaks to a lot of the things that we're seeing from many of our customers. And so I think that was a great encapsulation of everything that you guys are currently doing and you guys are hoping to do in the future. So with that, I think that's all the time that we have for Q&A.
Thank you, everybody. We had some fun recording this webinar. I found the questions really interesting because they tied up to the story. So thanks for your attention. And just a word of closure before I leave you guys at this. So I know like a lot of you guys are in the process, are in this journey actually. Lots of you are starting this journey. Other people are more advanced. So I think one of the core aspects of this API journey, and that's why it's such an exciting one, is you need really to make it API focused. What you want to achieve with APIs. Really think about that question, and pretty quickly think about how you're going to scale it, because that's the whole aspect of when you kickstart an API program is how are you going to scale? So I think this is one of the questions that is central to this end. I hope the insights that we gave you through our own journey could help you answer this question. Thank you all, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Nazar. Thank you so much, Adrian, for both of your guys' time. Thank you, everyone who has joined this webinar, for your time. If you guys are looking to learn more about Airbus's story or about MuleSoft, please visit us on our website, mulesoft.com, and feel free to send us a contact request form, and we'll have one of our account teams reach out to you to learn more about MuleSoft. Thank you once again. Thank you, Adrian and Nazar, and we'll see you guys next time.